It's just not practical.
Not the second time.
Well, I don't know how much traffic with that bypass road there that goes down to, from 14 down to Abrams. That gravel road.
24, that's eight.
Oh,
So- Some will probably take it, but I don't think you want to advertise that as
Yeah.
a,
Yeah,
as a
I
route
wouldn't
because.
It wouldn't take long for them to get beat up.
Or,
Yeah.
So I gotta get the ditch.
Especially if it's wet, it would get, yeah.
Your, what I was looking at here, the actual storm water drainage tunnels will be on the south side of the road.
Yes, the majority of them.
Now, of course, there'll be some inlets on the north side, but there's a pipe running down the south side. The ditches currently through there will be filled in somewhat, correct?
They will be filled, yes. Yards, the grade of the street is designed so that yards will drain into the street. There are some places, there are some yards down, especially down in the bottom, that are very, very flat. We will be able to drain the stormwater into the street, but some of those yards don't drain the best, but they don't drain the best right now. But, yes, the ditches will be filled.
Will the sidewalk be the last thing built? How's that work in there?
Most likely, it usually is. The grading will take our street and the grading, and the last thing would typically be the sidewalk.
And we're taking that clear up to Casey's, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Lloyd, you have a question?
For Ronnie, maybe, are you gonna have the electric and lighting done?
We'll hope to.
They're making good progress.
You ordered the lights, we got people things forbidden.
It'll be painful for a while, but boy, when it's finished, it's gonna be nice. Now, you're gonna take some of the grade out of that going to the east, is that correct?
Yeah, the hill will get cut down, so it will increase sight distance going up over the hill or the hump just to the west of Casey's. And that will be, in my opinion, a very big improvement because there is not a lot of sight distance right there.
Got those lines. Then too, there will be no storm drainage up by Casey's, is that correct? It's just gonna be the tube that they currently have.
Correct.
based- But the street will be curbed and guttered clear to the highway,
That is correct.
but no storm water drainage.
That's correct.
Through that little portion, correct?
I didn't study that coming in here, but I'm pretty sure that stormwater will be taken care of with curb cuts that will drain down into the ditch that is already there, and then it will exit through the existing storm pipes that are up at Casey's.
Any other questions for Stuart?
I just have one comment. We don't have too much acquisition. We just have two very minor easements that we have to do.
And we're working on those.
So that's a good thing, that we don't have to deal with too much of that, so.
Nobody has any other questions for Stuart? I have another question. With the work that's completed up on 14 with the rainfall event that we had over the weekend, like 3 inches,
Yes.
how did that affect everything? Was there any problems downstream? Everything worked fine, or no increased water moving through?
It plugged up the sediment controls that were in place, which is what they're designed to do. So they've been spending quite a bit of time cleaning up their sediment controls. And the sediment control, I can't remember his technical name, but he comes out of Pittsburgh. He is the sediment, the erosion control guru. He was up here first thing Monday morning, and he had a laundry list of things the contractor had to do to get the site back into shape for the next rain event.
Then one other question. I seen a comment was made about a bridge on West Main with the city and the county. Are you familiar with what's going on?
Yeah, we're working on trying to get that straightened out. The bridge on West Main is part of the county inspection schedule, but we are being told it should be a city. It's on an FAS route. we're being told, or I was made aware that it should be a city bridge, so we'll keep you posted on that.
Sound like to me it's a county bridge.
Well.
Is it falling apart? Is that why we're getting?
It's funny, I was at the commissioners yesterday and they thought it was a city bridge.
Well, they didn't know
Do I have a motion?
Is it a state bridge now?
And then Tom made the comment, I believe in compromise.
When it works for me.
No, the other Tom.
No, I'm compromising, it's their bridge. Well, I'm sure we're gonna find out. Any other questions for Stuart?
No.
Or Stuart, you got any more for us?
No, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here, and we will put into the documents completion before Memorial Weekend. Substantial completion, that means that it's opened up to traffic in the event that there's some cleanup work or something like that.
Site work, walk work.
Yeah, that can take place afterwards, and that won't affect, that would help ensure that the city's getting the best pricing that they can, but it's open to traffic. It will look like what it's going to look like, and, access into town from the east for Memorial Weekend. I think that's great.
And another question off this subject, but have you heard anything from Trek?
I have not, and I was buried this afternoon. I couldn't follow up with him. I wondered if that question might come. I do not know, but I can check with him tomorrow and get with Jay. And
That's fine, I was just curious if you had heard anything from them yet. Any other questions for Stuart? Okay.
all right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Stuart, for coming in this evening. Next item on the agenda is the Leadership Mitchell County Task Force. Going to visit with us about municipal government.
Good evening, council members. I think most of you know me, but I'm Mark Paulin. I'm on the Leadership Mitchell County Board. I'm here tonight representing the task force that we put together in early January to work on the issue with the open fourth ward positions. I also have with me here tonight Mr. John Devine, who I'm sure you all know, who we've been visiting with on this process. And so I just want to kind of summarize what's happened, bring you up to speed, and tell you kind of where we're hoping to head next with this whole process. So, as you know, Brandon met with you guys on January 5th. It's been 6 months now. Time really flies. We've been having several meetings, discussing with different people, gathering input, just trying to really understand the situation fully as best we could anyway. What we've learned as, first of all, there's many different forms of municipal government in the United States, and there's many variations of those different forms. A lot of cities do things a lot of different ways. And Mr. Devine, I think, is kind of our expert, so to speak, who can kind of help answer any questions that you may have about that. We do know that, some Kansas municipalities over the years have moved to different structures as they've evolved. Some of them, I know, have a lot less than 8 council members, so that was one thing that kind of stood out to us. We do know that if there's changes that you guys want to present, there's a good likelihood that they may involve needing to go to the public with a vote. You may decide, and we may recommend going to a vote, even if that's not the case, just because it's a good PR. Make sure that we have the public involved in the process. We have heard from citizens. We've heard them say that, the current structure is not working. There's obviously many opinions about what to do next or what to change. But we're kind of gathering information now, so we're not really here tonight to present to you what we think that is. There's certainly people out there that feel what we're doing now is not sufficient, but there's probably some that are comfortable with the process as well. So part of that is, and I think you're aware now, is that this Thursday we're going to hold a public forum. We encourage and invite all of you to attend, obviously to be a part of that and to listen and learn We're wanting to gather information, we want to hear what the public has to say, but also we're here tonight because we want to hear your comments, maybe answer any questions that you may have, and so that we make sure we get everybody's input. What you can expect from us is we will be back on the 16th with a recommendation based on everything that we've learned. So we'll present to you, here's kind of what we're thinking from what we've seen. And then obviously it's up to you guys to take that recommendation, however you say fit. We do know that with the November election coming up, there's a time frame there that starts to collapse on us pretty quickly. Having to get, if you want to go to vote, you need to have something to them 60 days in advance if you want to get a question on the ballot. So knowing that, that's one reason we're going to come back quickly to you. And then that will, allow you some time, not much time, but if you want to deliberate, likely that first meeting in September, you might need to make some decisions then if you want to move forward with any changes, or if you see fit to just leave it as it is. That's your prerogative as well. I think that brings everything forward as best I know. Like I said, I've got John here to answer questions and to talk to you a little bit more about his knowledge of the different forms of city governments. So I guess with that, I'll open up to questions.
Is your recommendation going to be based on surveys that LMC has done in conjunction with input that you received from your Thursday meeting?
Yeah, before we start, Chris, let me throw out a couple of things. One is, the meeting Thursday is a discussion. It's not going to be a presentation of, here's 5 options. It's going to be, what we want to do and I think for your benefit, is to say, what are the things that citizens are concerned about right now with how the process works? What are things that you really like? If you could design the perfect city structure and how the commission works with the citizens and it all works together, what would that be? So that the task force can look at that, put it together, and put it in a way that seems to fit what the citizens are saying. I've been impressed. The task force is truly looking at, my conversations with them, they're not looking to come to you and say, do this. What they're looking to do is come to you and say, here are some approaches and some alternatives, and they are going to take the initiative to say, here's the one we think from everything we've heard and all the work we've done that looks best. So that's one issue. Another issue I think that's really important, the city administrator and the city attorney need to be helping in this process. Not making the decisions, but as the task force hears what the citizens are saying, I think their plan right now is to ask to meet with each one of you individually, to sit down and ask so that they also have your input, because the reality is you all are the folks that the citizens go to and say, wait a minute, what are you doing? Or why aren't you doing? You get it from both sides. So the task force is planning over the next 10 days or so to 2 weeks to sit down with each one of you individually and say, okay, where are you at? What do you think? What's concerns you have? One of the nice things about Kansas, because of home rule, as I was going through all of the state documents, I'm not sure there's a single city in the state that follows 100% the structure as it is in the city, in the state codes. It's been real interesting going through here. Because Kansas is, and this is something, see, counties don't have this ability. Counties pretty much are a state institution and they're structured a certain way. Cities, because of home rule, and this is where it's important that we get the staff involved so that we're making sure we're staying in that mode. But our plan is to get input from citizens on Thursday, and then the task force will take that input, the input they get from each one of you, and try to, and they'll put together, here are the things we've heard, here are the things that we see, and here are what we're looking at. And I think it's important, it doesn't mean that, hey, things are broke, as we've talked about at one of our retreats, but as we move into the 21st century, and as in my mind, as progressive as Beloit is, what's an approach and what's the right structure that helps you go to another level? And that's what they're looking at. And again, some of it comes in. I know, you've got an empty seat, and it's been an empty seat for a period of time. That's happened in the past. So what are the things that we can do? But I think in my conversations with the task force, they don't have a preconceived, they didn't start out and say, here's what we want, now let's gather information so we can sell our point. Instead, it's let's talk and find out, because there's enough citizens that are saying, are we doing it the best we can? And I think that's where they're coming from. So that just gives you a little bit of what the process is that we're looking at.
How are you planning on facilitating that meeting on Thursday?
I will be up at the front of the room to kind of kick off the discussion and just kind of welcome everybody and explain, kind of what I explained to you tonight and what the process is. And then, John really is going to be facilitating. Like he said, it's really about asking, what are the things that concern you, and what would you like to see different, just kind of gathering their thoughts.
Yeah, it's going to be a real open discussion. And it's not going to be, I get frustrated, most of us do, when we see people bring us together and they have this, they ask a question in a way that you really, do you still beat your wife? Kind of, No, we want this to be real open. So we're going to ask the questions in a way that just opens it up to broad-based. Any comment, any thought, we want to hear everything. And I think it's important for you to know that any citizen that has a concern, they've had a chance to express it, it's been looked at. Probably what we'll do, we won't write down comments by, John Devine said this, but we will take down all of the comments. We'll track everything that's said. And then we'll bring those back and we'll look at them and say, okay, what do we mean? Because we want to be able, when they come back to you, to be sure, and when you make a decision, somebody doesn't come in and say, well, I asked about that. Well, yeah, it was there, and here's why we decided to approach it this way instead of another way. Okay.
Any questions?
It's gonna be at 7 o'clock on Thursday. Municipal building downstairs. Yeah.
For those of us who are not gonna be able to be here because we've had arrangements made for 6 months for that particular day. Are you just gonna have somebody taking notes? You gonna have videotape the meeting? How are we going?
We're not planning on videotaping the meeting. We're gonna do two things. One is we'll take notes, and both will keep notes so people see what we're putting down. And then we'll also, after that meeting is when the committee will look to sit down one-on-one, and they'll have those notes, so when they meet with you one-on-one, and again, it's just like here, it's a public record, so those notes will be available for anybody that wants them.
Are you having the meeting in the big room downstairs?
Yes, I believe so. That's
Okay.
I got a question.
Are they still playing Thursday night basketball?
No, I think Lynn canceled it.
Yeah, that was discussed as a concern.
Assuming a majority of council members show up, do we gotta call it together as a formal public meeting?
If you have a majority of a quorum there, you would, yes.
It would almost be more like if they go to church on a Sunday. It's as long as it's not your, and again, correct me here, but as long as it's not your meeting and you're not.
Well, it depends on what they
directed.
discuss. I mean, yeah, it depends on how much you all are
And
involved.
Discussing city
just,
governance.
well, here's the other thing, and I'm gonna say this in advance, so start to get irritated now if you want to. we want your input, but I'm gonna ask you to hold off until the citizens have talked. Because there's some citizens, if one of you come out and says something, then it, okay, we'll go along with it. So I may ask you, and those of you who know me, you know, if all of a sudden one of you start to bring up something, I may say, hey Matt, could we hold off, let's hear what's going on. The other thing is, this is an input of information session. It is not a debate on the yes or the no's
I
and the
don't
pluses
think
or
you guys
minuses.
want to hear from us.
I would prefer, yeah, that you guys just observe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My question was,
And like you said-
in respect to the Coma laws, I mean, how do we not violate that? by
If you're just
taking
there observing and everyone else is, I think you're okay. But if 6 of you start having a discussion amongst yourselves, then we're gonna have.
Yeah, and I'll watch it. Yeah, I don't know if any of you go to the, if you have them here in Salina, when we do the legislative or discussions, almost all the city commissioners show up for those. And that's because it's a discussion, but here, Matt, I think you're right, we've got to be a little sensitive because it is a city-related topic. So if I cut anybody off short, I'm doing it to hopefully save you from getting in trouble, not to be nasty.
Do you have an idea of what's, like, how much of the population you have reached or are hoping to reach through all those? I mean, I'm just wondering, we have a city of X, how many people have actually contacted you? How much feedback are you actually getting? Is this 20 really vocal people in the community that you've spoken to, or is it a couple hundred or 1,000? You know, that's what I'm trying to.
I mean, I hate to put a number on it, but I mean, it's not over 100 or 200 or anything like that. You know, just different conversation. And that's really why the community forum is important, because that is, you know, their voice to speak in this process.
As far as surveys go, you haven't sent out any surveys as such. It's just one-on-one conversation that some of the people in the task force have had.
Yeah, we did discuss that early on, and it just didn't materialize, quite honestly.
Last time I was seeing you, I guess it's illegal, I don't know. You were going down looking at possible names of people to contact to fill that.
To the fourth ward position, yeah.
Did you actually make any phone calls or contacts yet, or, I mean, is it?
No, we have not.
Okay.
You know, really, that got to the point where we just, the more we talked about, we felt like it was just important to look at the process, and, you know, we can fill the seat, and that may solve the problem for today, but it doesn't really look at the underlying process that could be the reason why the seat's open.
So in other words, then you have the possibility of vacating some more of these seats then?
How do you mean?
What we would hope is whatever you come up with, there's a process, and this is where it may be that it actually ends up taking two election cycles to totally put the new process into place. Because each of you is elected for a term, and correct me here, but I don't think you can cancel that term in the middle. And so it may take two election processes. I know Eudora 3 years ago went from a council administrator to a manager commission form, and I think it took them maybe 3 years. They had an election, and then it took another cycle. So it's not, there's no intent to say, okay, some of you are going to, you know, we're going to call you on a Tuesday or Wednesday morning and say, well, too bad.
So for instance, since we have term limits,
Yeah.
I'm in my second term, if we choose to reduce the size of council, you may eliminate my position, even though after my term's up, I can't run again. We would just eliminate that position.
Yeah, that position then may not be on the ballot anymore. Yeah.
They may suggest
That's all. Yeah, I'm not throwing that
Yeah,
out.
no,
I'm
what-
saying that's-
And that would be part of, you know, if we do have a recommendation that is something like reducing, that would be part of, we'll come with a plan of how that's gonna happen. We understand, you know, that that's, and obviously, nobody would wanna just have to leave, vote yourself out of your seat, so to speak, so we're definitely sensitive to that.
And the other thing is some of the details, if you go to the, and I'm agreeing here, you want to go, even Kansas law lets you, by ordinance, make some pretty significant changes. But you probably will want to look at that awfully carefully, so that, because, you know, you think about how long you've had this structure. And so when you go in, if you make the decision to go to a new structure, you want to make sure all of the citizens understand what's going on and why it's going on, and have a chance to have input. And we have to work through this, but I think, you know, if you got a vote from the citizens that said, yes, we want to go to this approach, then you might have, that's where, again, the attorney and the city manager would look at, okay, let's figure out what's the best timeline. Another question that has come up is, I know that you're in the process of getting ready to start doing interviews for a full-time administrator. One is you want them to know what you're doing, but most of the folks that you're going to be talking to about coming in, you're not looking at, I mean, again, this is an alternative, but I don't think you're looking at, we're going to give the mayor and the council more authority, and we're going to be taking authority away from the city administrator. I don't think any of you want to be public works director or utilities director. And so if they know, in fact, for most of the people you're talking to, this would be a positive. Whether you do something or not, the fact that you're open to looking at and considering, so this, if anything, should be a positive in that process of talking to new folks.
When you're talking about a public vote on like the November, are you talking a binding or non-binding act? Or are you just talking a recommendation? There's a big difference, obviously, between.
Right, and I think that's what we have to well, in a sense, that's the thing that you'll have to decide. The task force will come with a recommendation, and then in turn, and again, what happens, even if it's, sometimes if it's not non-binding, but you tell the citizens you're going to do something, in reality, it's...
Well, it's like Brexit. It's
Yeah.
a non-binding recommendation by the government, but
There's no way that they...
18 million people said, well,
Yeah, and that's the way it is. I mean, if all of a sudden the citizens said, yeah, we like this, let's do it, and then 3 months later, or 6 months later, somebody said, well, we kind of like what we're doing, let's not change.
I'm gonna go back to the beginning.
Yes.
Because I'm confused. You said, it was mentioned something about interviewing each of us individually. Who's doing that interview?
The task force.
Okay,
contact you.
because you'd mentioned those two to start with. and I'm- Okay.
No, excuse me. No, that's the task force. It's just, they need to be engaged because they are the in Beloit, there's your two professionals in the local government structure and organization. So concept, recommendation, but you want to have them involved so that it meets the standards and requirements. Because sometimes, as we know, especially with the state of Kansas right now, you put two words the wrong way and somebody all of a sudden interprets it totally different than what was meant.
Any other questions for Mark or Joe? Do you have any more questions for us?
No, thank you for your time and hope to see most of you on Thursday.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you guys coming out. Yep. Task force. Next item on the agenda is an early retirement. Or whether we want to proceed, continue offering early retirement.
Mine is a question. This is something you've made available to employees, and I guess my question is it a policy that you want to continue? Because it will expire this year.
Oh, no, people had until December 31st to decide if they want to retire anytime in 2016,
Okay.
and that was the input.
So, after 2016, do you want to carry it on into 2017? Or what position does the council want to take on?
What are your
offering
thoughts
that?
on this program, Jay?
Well, of course, it's a program that allows a person to retire at 62 and have the full benefit of city insurance prior to going on Medicare insurance at 65.
And we pay that.
Yes, the city pays that. It's an incentive for somebody to leave, frankly, if that's, and I know there's some people that would like to take advantage of that. The offset, of course, is the salary decline that you have there that helps offset the cost that the city picks up from insurance.